Welcome everybody. This is Bob Hollis with the Mobius Network, and today I'm going to show you how to install WordPress on a server to set up a website. Now, there's also a WordPress subscription that some people use, but in this case what we're going to be doing is installing WordPress on our own server and using it that way. So you'll need to start with having an account set up for your website. And in this installation demo, I'm going to use the domain communityjam.org. And to get the Cpanel, which is a pretty commonly used application for this type of thing, server access, so I'll just type Cpanel at the end. It also resolves to :2082, which is another quick and easy way to get there. So in this case, now I'll say up front that I am going to be deleting this account as soon as this video is done and setting it up again. So none of the information I enter here in terms of username or password will actually be valid, and that's why I do not have security concerns by doing this on video. So I'm going into Cpanel, and I'm not going to remember the password since that's going to be changing. And when you first get to Cpanel, you'll see that there are some video guides that can get you started. I'm not worried about that. I'm going to say no thanks, I'm fine. And so once you are in there, you'll want to go to File Manager and Show Hidden Files. I always do. Gives you more access to anything you might need. That opens up File Manager. So the first thing I'm going to do is upload WordPress, the installation file. So I'll use my upload button here and browse. And I happen to save copies of all these things. I've got a lot of my own directories. When you are using WordPress files, you can just save them as favorites by going to wordpress.org and starting your own account, which is free. And then when you go in and look at plugins, you can save the favorites and use them directly through the back of the site without actually downloading anything. I like to download copies of everything. Just so I have various versions if I ever need to refer back to them. If I knew, for example, 3.42 worked, but 3.51 was buggy, I've still got previous versions that I can resort to if necessary. So I'm selecting the most recent version of WordPress, which is 3.5.1. And I'm uploading those files. It doesn't take very long. It's a pretty quick process. And there, it's completed. So now if I were to close my File Manager upload window and just reload, we can see that WordPress is there, and we've got our .ht access file. Now I like to install WordPress right in the root of the, not the root of this whole site, but in the public HTML rather than its own separate directory. But you can also install it in a separate directory, and some people like to do that. It's just a matter of preference. So in either way, you need to pay attention to security as well, and we'll be talking about that further through installation. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the zip file that I uploaded and extract it. And it wants to go by default into public HTML. That's fine, but it's going to put it into a WordPress subfolder, as you can see. So that's where all of our extracted files are at the moment. So I'm going to select that folder over here so that I can access all the files within that folder. And then I'm just going to choose Select All, and I'm going to copy all these files directly into public HTML rather than in the WordPress subfolder. Okay, so now that that's done, if I go to public HTML, we can see that our WordPress files are there, and we're not going to need this anymore, so I'm going to get rid of the original file that we uploaded. I'll delete that. Okay, and I still do have some redundancy because this folder right here, WordPress, contains all of the folders, all of the files that are out here. But I'm going to keep that for now, just in case I need to refer back to it, since it will remain a full set of uncorrupted and unchanged files from the installation process. So if one of these happens to get messed up because I'm in there fiddling around, I've got a copy right there I can refer to until I'm done and ready to go live. Now, the next step would normally be to install WordPress. But before we install WordPress, we need to create a database in which to install it. So I'm going back to Cpanel, and I'm going down here to MySQL Database Wizard, and I can create a demo database. So again, all of this is going to go away, so I'm not too concerned about high levels of security and exposing this. But one of the things I'll comment on is that these settings, if exposed, can make your site vulnerable. So for right now, you want to always use something different for your database and username, and I'm using very simple differences for now. And I'm just going to make things easy for this installation demo purpose, just happen to copy that so I can do a little bit of pasting the next time through. And I'm going to paste it here and just add a 2 on the end, just to have something to work with here. Again, that's not good password policy. I'm just doing this as a demo. And then I'll create the user, and then give the user all privileges. Okay, so we've got our database set up. Now, if I go back out to the site that we're installing, which is on a development domain for now called communitijam.org, I can go out to the web and go to communitijam.org, and it tells me that WordPress isn't here, but not configured or installed. So I'm just going to use the create a configuration file option, and now it's telling me what I'll need to install, and we've already got this. We just set up all of our database information. So let's go. And database name, well, we know that that's not WordPress. We copied that from the last one while we were setting up the database. The username was the same. Again, just for demo purposes, this is not a good security policy. You don't want to have that be that close. And then again down here, I just copied one in, and I put the number 2 at the end of it. Localhost is correct. That's typically what it's going to be called. Now, here's another security precaution. The table prefix by default is WP for WordPress. That's generally not a good idea because hackers, again, just knowing that piece of information can use it to their advantage. So you might want to randomly put just a couple of other characters in there so that it's not WP underscore, or even get rid of the WP altogether. But don't use the standard WP underscore. It can cause just make you more vulnerable. No site is 100% perfect. For security purposes, even the Department of Defense and big banks get hacked. But you want to make it as difficult as you can for at least keeping the amateurs out. All right, Sparky, you've made it through this part of the installation. So now they're telling us that WordPress is communicating with our database. So the software is now talking to the database on the server. And as I run the install, they want to know our site title. So I'll just say Community Jam for now. That's going to be different, but I may as well put the .org. And it's not necessarily a domain. You can call it anything you like. This is just a demo. Another security precaution. Do not stick with the default name admin. If you do that, you're giving hackers half of what they need to get into your site right away. And hackers will come to sites and try admin first before they start running their scripts to decipher passwords. So for username, I'm just going to put CJ123 for now. And again, all this is going to change, and then they want a password twice. Here you really do want to use upper lowercase for everything, and use some symbols, and do what they say here to make sure you've got a strong password. The biggest problem I've seen with people using WordPress or Joomla or Drupal, it's not so much the software that's weak, it's the passwords and things that people use that are readily scrapable off of their Facebook pages. And hints and clues, if you say what was the first street I lived on, and somebody can look that up in Facebook, you don't want to use that as your security clue for your password. All right, so we can put any email in here. I'll just do bob@bobhollis.com for now, and we do want to allow search engines to index the site. I'm going to now install WordPress, and now I'll click the login. And here we had CJ123, and I don't even remember what I put for a password, but let's see. I don't think that was it. So it's not going to work because I didn't even pay attention. Oh, it did. Okay. So I'm not going to bother remembering the password because it's done, and this whole site's going to be deleted and rebuilt before this domain's used for anything, again for security reasons. But now that I'm in here, I can go into any, install additional plugins. And I mentioned earlier that you want to get a WordPress site set up. So for example, if I were to log in on my WordPress account, and then I come in here to plugins, log in. Okay, so now that I'm in here and it knows who I am and it recognizes me, now if I'm back here on WordPress and I want to install, I can say show me all my favorites and then just put in my username, get favorites. And now anything that I have favorited through the WordPress website is now saved right here for me. So if I want to, for example, install TinyMCE, which is a WYSIWYG editor, I can just click install now, activate the plugin, and it's there. So that's the basics for installing WordPress. And then once your site is up and live, you can go out to take a look at it. And right now, that's what it looks like because we haven't done anything with it yet, including theming and layout and installing all of our plugins and adding content. But that's the fun part. So anyway, happy hacking. I hope that explains how a WordPress site is installed. And the process is very similar for Drupal and Joomla in terms of creating the database and then connecting the database with the software so that it all works, just a slightly different process with each one. If you have any questions, contact Bob at themobiusnetwork.com.